Your car won't start. Your phone is a brick. Every vehicle built after 1980, every smartphone in every pocket, every smart meter on every house on your street just stopped working at the same second. The grid restoration industry is valued at over $110 billion in the United States alone. It's built on the assumption you won't know what to do in the first 60 minutes. In the next 11 minutes, I'll show you exactly what to do, in what order, exactly why the first hour decides whether you recover or you don't. Stay with me, because the last item on this list comes from a 1,962 nuclear test the Air Force did not expect to fail the way it did. The first thing you do is nothing. You stand still. You listen. If an electromagnetic pulse just hit, every unshielded semiconductor within line of sight of the burst is already dead or dying. Panicked movement in the first 30 seconds is how people walk into traffic that isn't moving the way they expect. Look at the streetlights. Look at the cars on the road. Look at your phone screen. If the streetlights are dark, the cars are coasting to a stop with their hazards off. Your phone screen is black and won't respond to the power button. You are not dealing with a normal outage. A normal blackout leaves your phone alive. An EMP does not. The second thing you do is check a battery-powered device you have not touched in over a year. A flashlight in a drawer, an old transistor radio in the garage, a wristwatch with a button cell. If those work and your phone does not, the pulse passed through. Devices that were disconnected, powered off, and stored without long antenna wires often survive. Devices that were plugged in, broadcasting, or carrying a charge through long copper runs often don't. This is your first verification test, and you can do it in under 60 seconds. Here's the part most preparedness content gets wrong. The authority on this is not a YouTube channel. It is a congressional commission. The EMP Commission, formerly the Commission to Assess the Threat to the United States from Electromagnetic Pulse Attack, was established by Public Law 106, 65 inches, 1999. It delivered its final unclassified executive report in 2008, with a follow-up in 2017. That report concluded that within 12 months of a continental-scale EMP event, up to 90% of the American population could die. Not from the pulse itself, but from the cascade failure of water, food, medical, and sanitation systems. That number is not from a prepper. That number is from a body that reported to Congress. The third thing you do is fill every container you own with water. Bathtubs, sinks, pots, pitchers, anything that holds a liquid. Municipal water pressure in most American cities is maintained by electric pumps with backup generators rated for roughly 72 hours. If the generator's control electronics were fried, that window collapses to whatever pressure is left in the towers. In most systems, that's under 12 hours. You have minutes, not hours, to capture clean water before the taps go to a trickle, and then to nothing. This single step has saved more lives in every grid-down scenario studied by FEMA than any other action a civilian can take. The fourth thing you do is find your vehicle. If your car is older than 1,980, mostly carbureted, no electronic ignition, no engine control module, there is a real chance it will start. If it is newer, try anyway. Some vehicles parked in metal garages, surrounded on all sides by grounded steel, survive a pulse. The garage acts as a crude Faraday cage. This was documented during the 1962 Starfish Prime test. Streetlights on Oahu failed, but equipment inside metal-walled buildings did not. Try the ignition once. If it cranks, you have a working vehicle and a working alternator. That means you have a generator on wheels. Here's where the physics gets strange. An electromagnetic pulse is not one wave. It is three. The E1 component arrives in under 5 nanoseconds and induces voltages of up to 50,000 volts per meter into any conductive wire it crosses. The E2 component looks like a lightning strike and lasts about a millisecond. The E3 component is slow, lasting tens of seconds to minutes. It destroys the giant transformers in substations because it overloads them with direct current the system was never designed to handle. The reason your shortwave radio in a metal cookie tin might survive, your phone does not, is that the tin reflects the fast E1 wave before it can couple into the circuit board. The wavelength of E1 is short enough that even small gaps in shielding matter. A sealed metal container with no wires running through it is the only reliable protection. The fifth thing you do is open your circuit breaker panel and shut off the main breaker. If the grid comes back online in surges, those surges will travel through your house wiring and finish off anything the pulse didn't kill. The main breaker is usually at the top of the panel, the largest switch, often labeled 100 or 200 amps. Flip it down. This is a 6-0 second job free, and it is the single highest value action you can take to protect any electronics that survive the initial pulse. The sixth thing you do is unplug everything, every appliance, every charger, every television, every router, anything connected to a wall outlet, even with the main breaker off. Induced currents in your house wiring from aftershocks or solar follow-on activity can reach plugged-in devices. Unplugging takes 10 minutes for an average home and costs nothing. The industry that profits from you not doing this is the consumer electronics replacement market. It's valued at over $400 billion globally. Replacement cycles already assume you'll buy a new TV every 7 years and a new phone every 2.5 years. The seventh thing you do is locate every battery in the house and consolidate them. AAA 2, 9-volt lithium camera batteries, the spare battery for the cordless drill, the backup laptop battery in the closet. Batteries stored in original packaging, away from devices, generally survive an EMP. They have no antenna and no semiconductor to fry. Put them in one container, in one place, where you can find them in the dark. This is your power inventory for at least the next 2 weeks. The eighth thing you do is find a manual can opener. I am not joking. The Red Cross has documented in multiple disaster after-action reports that the single most common point of failure in American households during extended grid-down events is the inability to access shelf-stable food. Every can opener in the house is electric. A manual opener costs $4 at any hardware store. If you don't own one right now, that is the cheapest preparedness purchase you will ever make. Here's the detail that nobody puts in the manual. Your gas stove, if you have one, will not light on its own. Modern gas ranges use electric igniters. Without power, the igniter clicks but produces no spark. You can still light the burner with a match or a lighter. Turn the knob to ignite, hold the flame to the burner head, and the gas will catch. This works on virtually every residential gas range built in the last 40 years. Most homeowners have never been told. The ninth thing you do is account for your medications. If anyone in your household depends on insulin, oxygen, dialysis, or any refrigerated drug, the clock starts the moment the power goes. Insulin stored at room temperature retains effectiveness for roughly 28 days, according to manufacturer guidelines from Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk. Oxygen concentrators stop working without electricity, but compressed oxygen tanks do not. Identify what you have, identify how long it lasts, and identify the nearest hospital that runs on a hardened backup system. Veterans Affairs hospitals, by federal mandate, maintain 7 days of independent power. Most civilian hospitals maintain 96 hours. The 10th thing you do is establish a communication plan with no electronics. Write down, on paper, where every member of your family is supposed to go if the grid is down for more than 24 hours. A single rally point. A single backup rally point. A single out-of-region contact, written with full address, that everyone tries to reach by physical mail or by walking. This is how families found each other after Hurricane Katrina, after the 2003 Northeast blackout, and after the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake. Paper does not need batteries. The 11th thing you do is protect what's left. Take any electronics that still work, any spare radios, any spare phones, any spare flashlights, and put them inside a metal container lined with cardboard. A galvanized steel trash can with a tight-fitting lid is available at any hardware store for under $30. It's sufficient for most aftershock pulses, including geomagnetic disturbances from the sun. The cardboard isolates the electronics from the metal wall. The lid must make full metal-to-metal contact around the entire rim. This is a Faraday cage. It's the same principle used by every Cold War military communication bunker built between 1955 and 1985. Here's the part I didn't expect when I went down this rabbit hole. The reason we know exactly what an EMP does to civilian infrastructure is because the United States tested it on its own infrastructure, by accident. On the 9th of July 1962, the Atomic Energy Commission, the Defense Atomic Support Agency, detonated a 1.4 megaton thermonuclear warhead 250 miles above Johnston Atoll in the Pacific. The test was codenamed Starfish Prime. The expected effects were studied. The unexpected effect was that 898 miles away in Honolulu, streetlights went dark, telephone microwave links failed, and burglar alarms went off across the city. All from a pulse the physicists on the project had calculated would be too weak at that distance to matter. The engineer who realized the calculations were wrong was a man named Conrad Longmire at Los Alamos. The model he built afterward, declassified in the 1980s, is the same model the EMP Commission used in 2008 to estimate the 90% casualty figure. The 11 steps you just heard are not survivalist folklore. They are the civilian translation of a problem the United States government has been quietly studying for 63 years. The reason you have not heard them in a single product manual, on a single utility company website, or in a single FEMA pamphlet handed out at a county fair, is that the industry's built on selling you replacement electronics, replacement vehicles, replacement appliances, have no commercial incentive to teach you how to keep the ones you already own alive. The total cost of everything I just described is under $60 and under 2 hours of work, done once before anything happens. The trash can, the manual can opener, the batteries, the printed family plan, the device on your counter, the car in your driveway, the wiring in your walls. All of it was designed in an era when engineers knew what could break it and chose, for reasons of cost, not to tell you. Share this with someone who has a family member on a medical device, someone who lives more than 30 minutes from a hospital, because they are the ones who will need the first hour the most. Keep your tools close, and keep thinking. And keep in mind that the threat we are discussing is not theoretical in the way that earthquake faults or asteroid strikes are theoretical. On the 9th of July 1962, the United States detonated a 1.4 megaton warhead 250 miles above Johnston Island in the Pacific. The test was codenamed Starfish Prime. The electromagnetic pulse that radiated outward traveled 898 miles to Honolulu. It knocked out 300 streetlights, blew the fuses on a telephone microwave relay station, set off burglar alarms across the city, and damaged a satellite called Telstar, one badly enough that it failed within months. Hawaii in 1962 had almost no solid-state electronics. The transistor radio was a luxury item. There were no integrated circuits in cars, no microprocessors in refrigerators, no digital control modules in furnaces. And still, a pulse from a weapon detonated 898 miles away reached down through the atmosphere and broke things on the ground. Now imagine that same pulse arriving over a city in 2024. Every traffic light, every gas pump, every grocery store register, every insulin pump, every pacemaker monitoring station, every water treatment pressure sensor, every natural gas pipeline shutoff valve, and every cellular tower contains microelectronics. They are 10,000 to 100,000 times more sensitive to voltage spikes than the vacuum tubes of 60 years ago. The Soviets ran their own test the same year, called Test 184, over Kazakhstan. The pulse from that detonation destroyed a 600-mile buried power cable, set a power plant on fire in the city of Karaganda, and shut down the main electrical supply to the city of Almaty. Those cables were buried, they were shielded by earth, and they still failed. This is why the steps matter in the exact order you heard them. Pull the most fragile devices out of circulation first, because anything still plugged into a wall, sitting exposed on a shelf, when the second pulse arrives will catch a second dose. The slower E3 component lasts for tens of seconds and induces currents in long conductors. The first pulse, called E1, lasts under a microsecond and fries semiconductors directly. The second, E2, looks like lightning and is the one most surge protectors are actually designed to stop. The third, E3, mimics a severe geomagnetic storm, the kind that took down the Hydro-Quebec grid on the 13th of March 1989 in 90 seconds. It left 6 million people without power for 9 hours in temperatures well below freezing. A single nuclear EMP delivers all three components in sequence. No commercial surge protector on the market is rated to stop the full waveform. The military standard, called MILSTD 188125, requires shielding effectiveness of 80 decibels across a frequency range from 10 kHz to 1 GHz. The testing alone for that certification costs more than most homes are worth. You cannot buy your way to that level of protection at a hardware store. What you can do is exactly what the 11 steps describe. Remove vulnerable items from the field of induction before the field exists, and keep replacements isolated until the field collapses. There is a man named William Graham who chaired the EMP Commission from 2001 through its final report in 2017. In testimony before the House Armed Services Committee on the 8th of May 2018, he stated that within 12 months of a nationwide EMP event, between 2/3 and 90% of the United States population would die, primarily from starvation, disease, and societal collapse. That figure, 90%, is the one journalists usually quote, and it is worth understanding where it comes from. It does not come from the pulse itself. The pulse kills no one directly. It comes from the cascade, Water treatment plants run on electricity. Most American cities have between 12 and 72 hours of water reserves before pressure fails. Hospitals run on backup generators, but those generators have control electronics that are themselves vulnerable. Even the hardened ones carry only 72 to 96 hours of diesel. Pharmacies cannot dispense without computerized records. Insulin requires refrigeration. There are roughly 7.4 million insulin-dependent diabetics in the United States. Dialysis patients number about 550,000. They require treatment every 2 to 3 days, or they die of potassium buildup within a week. None of these people are saved by the 11 steps you heard, but the 11 steps buy time for the people around them. Family members and neighbors who, in the first 72 hours, can be the difference between an organized evacuation to a still functional region. A panic stampede toward resources that have already been exhausted. The Congressional Research Service published a report in 2019. It noted that the United States has approximately 55,000 electrical substations. The destruction or disabling of just 9 specific substations, identified by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission in a study leaked to the Wall Street Journal in March of 2014, could cause a coast-to-coast blackout lasting 18 months or longer. The transformers in those substations are custom-built. They weigh between 200 and 400 tons each. They are manufactured almost exclusively in South Korea, Germany, and China, with lead times of 18 to 24 months under normal conditions and no surge capacity whatsoever. There is no warehouse full of spare grid transformers waiting to be trucked in. The grid you have is the grid you get. Once it goes, the clock that starts ticking is measured not in days but in seasons. So when you put a battery in a coffee can, when you write a phone tree on an index card, when you teach a child to find north by the sun, you are not preparing for an inconvenience. You are preparing for the first hour of a year that no one alive has lived through. The difference between the families who keep their feet under them, the families who do not, will be measured in choices made before the lights ever flickered. Keep your tools close, keep your people closer, and keep thinking.